Yo ho ho, what is going on all my fellow godlies and Warframe enthusiasts around the world? This is Vance, bringing you the Exalted Weapon update. Now, on one hand, I really hate that Digital Extremes did this because it made it so we had to forma all of our Exalted Weapons. But on the other hand, I like it because it made a lot of Warframes synergize a lot better. Having Exalted Weapons independent from melee or secondary, primary, makes it so you can pump out a lot more damage numbers, especially when it pertains to Titania. So let's get straight into it. Before I cover anything, I just want to say that I go the extra mile for you guys by providing a table of contents in the description section. So all you gotta do is go to the timestamps and skip to the Warframe that you're looking for. So let's get on with it. Alright, with Excalibur, I just did a ReForged on this guy, so I don't think there's a whole lot to explain. Growing Power, Rush, Umbra Intensify, Umbra Fiber, Umbra Vitality, Chromatic Blade, Radiant Finish, Hunter Adrenaline, Prime Flow, Prime Continuity, and then your Arcane enhancements are Arcane Fury and Arcane Strike. This entire build is going to come together to synergize with itself. However, when I did the ReForge, I did make a mistake. If I skip over to Exalted Umbra Blade, I will show you that I did not include Condition Overload. So that's going to be one thing that you want to swap out for Excalibur ReForged makers, is you want to swap out whatever I had here for Condition Overload. Otherwise, you've got your Gladiator Might, your Voltic Strike, your Life Strike, your Sacrificial Pressure, your Sacrificial Steel, your Prime Fury, your Prime Fever Strike, and of course the Exalted Blade, which we've talked about briefly. We're wondering whether or not this is going to be swapped out for like an Exalted two-hander, an Exalted dual-wield. That would be a really cool concept, and I hope Digital Extremes is listening to that. So in terms of weapons, I'm using Broken War with Prime Pressure Point, Prime Fever Strike, Shocking Touch, Prime Fury, Drifting Contact, Condition Overload, Berserker, Healing Return, and a crit, and of course that beautiful Crimson Dervish. For Hiku Prime, your secondary, I'm going to be using Hornet Strike, Barrel Diffusion, Pistol Pestilence, Pistol Ammo Mutation, which I need to forma and get myself a primed Pistol Mutation, Scorch, Jolt, Lethal Torrent, and then a Riven Mod, which if you didn't have that, you could go and replace it with something like Anemic Agility, although that's going to take away 15% damage. It's going to increase your fire rate by 90%. Which is going to also make the DPS a lot faster, of course. For other mods that you could use, of course, maybe like Lethal Momentum. It's a tough call, because I feel as though a Riven mod is kind of needed for Hiku Prime, but you're not going to be focusing on that too much. So Stun Wraith, I'm also using a Riven mod, but I've got Frigid Blast, Charge Shell, Contagious Spread, Hunter Munitions, Vicious Spread, Hell's Chamber, and Prime Point Blank. Now, I've discussed this before. If you don't have a Riven, just throw up a Blaze there. Or maybe an Accelerated Blast. It's really up to you. I know that not a whole lot of people are going to be able to get their hands on a Riven, so just mod with your personal preference in mind. Swapping over to my Valkyr build, I don't think anything has changed between the ReForged video and now, or the updated video of Valkyr. I've got Steel Charge, Rush, Transient Fortitude, Steel Fiber, Prime Continuity, Prime Flow, Eternal War, Narrow-Minded, Armored Agility, and Rage, which we definitely need to swap out for Hunter Munitions, because that is going to give us an extra 5%. Damage converted from our health into energy for us. Arcane Strike, Arcane Guardian. That's the arcane enhancements I'm using. I'm using Prisma Gakata with a Serration Split Chamber, and of course a Gakata Riven mod, Vital Sense, Thermite Rounds, High Voltage, Malignant Force, Speed Trigger. And I do want to say at this point in the video that if ever you feel as though you would rather use the actual elemental mods, such as Infected Clip in place of Malignant Force, or Stormbringer in place of High Voltage, go ahead and do that. With most of these Exalted weapon builds that I made, I went for minimalistic as possible, so you can definitely swap these out if you see fit. It'll probably end up doing much more damage, but in turn it's going to cost you more forma, and I wanted to rush out this video, so that's why I did not do that. For secondaries, I'm using Arca Cisco. It's Barrel Diffusion, Prime Pistol Gambit Jolt, Pistol Pestilence, Scorch, Prime Target Cracker, Lethal Torrent, Hornet Strike. For Arca Titron, we've got Blood Rush, Prime Pressure Point, Prime Heavy Trauma, Drifting Contact, Shattering Impact, Weeping Wounds, Prime Fury, and Berserker. But with Valkyr Prime Talons, I'm going with Prime Pressure Point, Prime Fury, Drifting Contact, Sacrificial Steel, Prime Peaver Strike, Shocking Touch, Hoarding Shatter, and Finishing Touch. Moving on to the Mesa build, it's a tough one here. I've got Pistol Amp, Coaction Drift, Constitution, Prime Continuity, Narrow-Minded, Vitality, Staggering Shield, Intensify, Prime Flow, Fleeting Expertise, Arcane Velocity, and Arcane Precision. I would definitely say that these arcane enhancements are crucial to your survivability, because every headshot you get with one of them is going to heal you, and then the other one is going to increase crits. So I'm using Burst Prime for my primary because, well, Burst Prime has that sweet Syndicate mod, Guild of Truth, that allows you to get health back every 2000 affinity. Serration is also included here with Malignant Force, High Voltage, Burst and Ribbon mod, Hammer Shot, Thermite Rounds, and Split Chamber. For secondaries, I'm using Aklex Prime. However, what I would like to do is switch over to the Piranha Prime once I get it, because after you get 3 kills in a row, you kind of start to dual wield, which is a unique feature to Piranha Prime. Prime Target Cracker is present here, Pistol Pestilence, Lethal Torrent, Anemic Agility, Barrel Diffusion, Hornet Strike, Convulsion, and Prime Pistol Gambit. Now, Anemic Agility doesn't have to be here anymore, considering the fact that it's not tied to our exalted weapons. So I'll take a second to find something that is more appropriate. Now, I probably will swap out Anemic Agility with Hollow Point, because it does minus that 15% damage, but it also ups the 60% critical damage, which is pretty essential, making Aklex Prime hit like a truck. For melees, I'm rocking the Ninkandi because that healing return is gonna shine brilliantly with this build. Prime Pressure Point, Prime Reach, Full Tick Strike, Virulent Scourge, Volcanic Edge, Drifting Contact, and Prime Fury. Now, this weapon is one of the fastest moving melee weapons, and so when you proc status, the healing return is going to behave very similar to a Life Strike. I mean, not as good. Obviously, Life Strike will replenish all your health with a heavy cost to your energy, but this won't do that. Plus, the benefits of healing return are better because you can use quick melee attacks instead of like having to dedicate switching to your melee. I've discussed the effectiveness of healing return versus Life Strike. I feel as though it's very underrated. Now for the regulators, I am using Hornet Strike, Barrel Diffusion, Pathogen Rounds, Convulsion, Prime Pistol Gambit, Prime Target Cracker, Anemic Agility, and Lethal Torrent. The fire rate is going to be pretty essential with the regulators because this is the ult, and the higher you can pump up the DPS, the faster you get your weapons spooled up, the more damage you're going to be doing, DPS, damage per second. So rate of fire is very essential to certain weapons. Not all weapons, like especially with Comb, you definitely want to get that spool up as fast as you can, and regulators are very similar to Comb in functionality. You want to get the spool up as quickly as possible, therefore you do the most damage, and plus you fire faster, which will, of course, make you kill things quicker as well. Moving on to Ivara, I don't think anything's changed with her, to be honest. I haven't put any arcane enhancements in here, but I have Energy Siphon, Power Drift, Overextended Transient Fortitude, Fleeting Expertise, Prime Flow, Prime Continuity, Stretch, Narrow-Minded, and Intensify. Again, no arcane enhancements. You can put whatever you want to in here. An Arcane Energize might be beneficial, Arcane Guardian, Arcane Theory maybe if you want to build for the Silent Assassin build, which I'll cover here in just a second with the Redeemer. You can cloak with Ivara and stay cloaked pretty much indefinitely as long as you have energy. So what that will do is it will provide a stealth bonus whenever you kill enemies or shoot them. And another thing you can do is while you're cloaked, you can put them under the effects of sleep, which will again give you another stealth bonus. and therefore increasing the effectiveness of Redeemer with the charged shot. So that's really, really helpful. Another thing that I might do is I might put on empowered blades to my actual build for Ivara, in case you really love the synergy of Redeemer with Ivara. I personally like it, but not enough to use it indefinitely. When I do spy missions, I occasionally use it. Not, like I said, not enough to put empowered blades on there and sacrifice my energy shields. But I have Bullet Dance, Shocking Touch, Prime Fever Strike, Drifting Contact, Vicious Frost, Volcanic Edge, Prime Fury, Prime Pressure Point, Molten Impact. And that does it for my Redeemer. For Furus, I have it here specifically to return health to you. Now, this is not going to do very much damage really at all, but you're going to want Prime Pistol, Ammo Mutation, Hornet Strike, Barrel Diffusion. Suppress is very important so that it's silent and it does not break your cloak whenever you're using Prowl. Lethal Torrent, Convulsion, Pathogen Rounds, and Winds of Purity. Winds of Purity is also another very important one because it's 20% lifesteal. It works pretty effectively. I think it's right in between Healing Return and Life Strike in terms of effectiveness and how much health you get back, and that's super important to this setup. Because we've already discussed the Redeemer, I'm going to go on to the Rakta Ceranos. This is what I use to get my energy back, because every 2000 affinity collected you get that boost in energy. It's excellent for spy missions. I have a Ceranos Riven mod for it, Serration, Hunter Munitions, Hammer Shot, Vital Sense, Split Chamber, Point Strike, and Infected Clip. For my Artemis Bow, I'm for a nice little bit of status for 76.5%. Serration, Split Chamber, Heavy Caliber, Point Strike, Vigilant Armaments, Vital Sense, High Voltage, and Malignant Force. It does, by default, it's going to crit pretty good, and then on top of the status that you got, it's going to be a very well-rounded. I mean, like I said, anytime I put Malignant Force and High Voltage out here, you could swap them for the actual elemental mods and boost your corrosive, but then again, you're going to have to put more Forma into this, as I already have 0 capacity left out of 60. So it's up to you if you want to go for, you know, higher damage and less status. It's totally your prerogative. Do whatever you want there. This is just a healthy recommendation to get you started, especially for people who are collecting all of the Warframes and now suddenly have to Forma all of the Exalted weapons. Now, Titania, I think, is the one who probably benefited the most from this transition, because she just absolutely destroys now. She is incredible. I don't think really anything has changed from the ReForged video that I did for her. I have Rifle Amp, Aviator, Prime Continuity, Constitution, Streamline, Stretch, Gladiator, Resolve, Intensify, Vitality, Prime Flow. My arcane enhancements are Arcane Victory and Arcane Acceleration. For primaries, I'm going to be using Tenora with a Serration, Split Chamber, Hammer Shot, Heavy Caliber, Point Strike, Malignant Force, High Voltage, and Vial Acceleration. For secondaries, I'm going to be using the Acrid, Barrel Diffusion, Jolt, Pathogen Rounds, Hornet Strike, Lethal Torrent, Pistol Pestilence, Toxic Sequence, and Prime Heated Charge. For melees, I'm going to bring a powerhouse in the form of Vanka Prime with Vermilion Storm, Prime Fury, Prime Pressure Point, Prime Fever Strike, Shocking Touch, Blood Rush, Organ Shatter, Drifting Contact, and Berserker. Now, here are the monumental pieces of this build: the Dexia and the DeWitta. These things are beautiful. I went with Hornet Strike, Prime Pistol Gambit, Lethal Torrent, Anemic Agility, Prime Target Cracker, Barrel Diffusion, Pistol Pestilence, and Jolt. And these things are, I literally never want to come out of my ult, because it is just so fun to fly around and mow mobs down. The rate at which you kill things while you're shooting mobs is hilarious. If you combine the tactics of the initial god builds I did for Titania, where you make them float, with the tactics of ReForged, you could still use your Penta to tie them to the ground and finish them off, which is great for when you're running around as Titania, but this just gives you an amazing alternative to just stay in your ult indefinitely, especially if you have an Arcane Energize as an enhancement. You can throw that bitch on there and fly around just doing damage to mobs, and it's crazy damage. It's just crazy. I love it. For the DeWitta, I got Prime Fury, Virulent Scourge, Voltic Strike, Prime Pressure Point, Prime Fever Strike, Organ Shatter, True Steel, and Drifting Contact. I think that maybe you should put in a Prime Reach if you were going to add an extra Forma to the DeWitta, because it's very clunky. Because it uses Arcwing controls, it's very clunky, it's hard to navigate, it's really hard to get in there, close the distance, and do melee, but when you do melee, it's going to put out quite a bit of damage. Lastly, but certainly not least, Wukong, I have Rejuvenation, Coaction Drift, Gladiator Resolve, Rage, and Hunter Adrenaline, Gladiator Aegis, Prime Continuity, Prime Flow, Fleeting Expertise, Streamline, Arcane Strike, probably an Arcane Fury or maybe an Energize for your Exalted form. I'm using Lens because, well, once you're in Defy, it can't self-down you, so Infected Clip, Stormbringer, Point Strike, Serration, Split Chamber, Vital Sim, Speed Trigger, Hunter Munitions. Sicarus Prime is also a part of my secondaries with Prime Pistol Gambit, Prime Target Cracker, Hornet Strike, Barrel Diffusion, Lethal Torrent, Pistol Pestilence, Jolt, and Hollow Point. I'm still using the Zaws for the power pole. I have Exodia Hunt on here, which actually makes enemies gravitate towards you when you're in your ult, which is so awesome. I will provide demonstration footage of that, and you will love it, I guarantee you. Twirling Spire, Prime Pressure Point, Prime Fever Strike, Voltic Strike, Drifting Contact, Healing Return, Gladiator Vice, Blood Rush, and Prime Fury. Now, as I discussed with the Iron Staff, because of the Hunt Exodia that we have, when you do smash attacks, I think it's the block function plus your melee function. The combo will hit the ground every so often, and it will pull enemies towards you, where you can there do finisher damage, and it's incredible synergy, especially for Wukong. I think Wukong and Titania are the two Warframes that benefited the most from Exalted weapons being separate builds. So with Prime Fury, we have, or Primal Fury I should say, we have Prime Pressure Point, Prime Fury, Sacrificial Steel, Drifting Contact, Finishing Touch, Shocking Touch, Prime Heavy Trauma, and Prime Fever Strike. And that's it. Alright, so that just about sums it up for all of my Exalted weapon builds updated. I did provide a little bit of subtle changes with some of the loadouts, but I mean, if you're following my series and you followed the God builds, the ReForged up until now, you can probably gather why I did things differently or what you need to do differently. So in that respect, I hope that you've learned something, and if you have, it always helps if you smash that like button, comment, share, subscribe, do everything I always encourage you to do, and until next time, this has been Vance, signing out. Peace.